Okay, SDR Fest, I'm super excited right now to bring you Bill Faeth, who, if you've been in the short-term rental world, you may or may not have come across his stuff. But if you haven't, you definitely want to find him wherever he is on the internet. Bill has been, or should I say, like just following him has really helped me with my own personal growth, even as a short-term rental host. And I am super excited to have him on today. So, Bill, welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So can you just kind of tell the listeners sort of, who you are, introduce yourself basically so that I don't have to butcher.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first and foremost, I'm a father and a husband. I almost got in a lot of trouble this week because I almost got my youngest daughter stuck in Montana. We did make it home in time for Christmas, though. Look, I'm from California originally, born in Long Beach, 50 years old. Serial entrepreneur. I've done 29 startups. I've had 19 exits. I built a one $50 million company, two 30 millions, and about six $10 million companies. And I'm a big believer, and no disrespect to anybody that's in a W-2, but if you haven't buried yourself into customer acquisition planning and strategic, client retention and sales and marketing and P&Ls and balance sheets, then you're missing a big component of this because this is a business.
Yes.
So I think that I'm one of the few people that got into this business early and started coaching and helping that really treat this like a bona fide business. It's no different than running a practice. It's no different than, me owning a limousine company, or when I had my glow in the dark miniature golf course business, or my 6 restaurants in California. It's all the same. And that takes a mindset shift for somebody that's been uber successful, as an attorney, as a doctor, as a dentist, whatever that is. And that's one of the things, honestly, that a lot of those high income earning professionals lack is the business acumen.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been one to really push having an intimate relationship with our financials, right? True, not it's not good enough just to have a P&L. We need to understand what that means and what that document is actually telling us,
Mm.
right? And how do we make those decisions moving forward? So I've also been in real estate, honestly, since I was 19 years old. So I went to UCLA on a full ride. I dropped out halfway through my freshman year, started playing professional golf.
Mm.
And when I was 20, after playing for about my first 9 months, I'd made a pretty decent amount of money. This was in 1992. And thank God my CPA was like my best man in my wedding. So he sat me down. He's like, "Hey, you have like $320,000 left over after all your expenses. What are you going to do with it?" I said, "Let's go to Vegas, play some golf, go gamble, do what." He's like, "No, let's do something with this." And he helped me buy my first duplex.
Oh, wow.
I just turned 20, and that was my first foray into real estate. So just so your listeners know, I'm pretty hardcore. I'm all in on every single thing that I do. And it's been in real estate. So I built a 4.5 acre, 57,000 square feet gold LEED certified, building. I've been in the industrial space. I live in Nashville, Tennessee. I
Mm-hmm.
was in long-term rents here when I don't even want to call it the boom, when kind of Airbnb came onto the marketplace in 12 and 13.
Okay.
But I've never invested into Nashville. And I want to explain to you why. One, and I don't want to get political because I am the least political guy ever, but our political climate has been in such disarray in Nashville, in Davidson County. And it struggles because I live in a state that is about as red as it gets, but literally the town, the capital, is bluer than San Francisco. So there's always been this battle. And what that means is very challenging regulatory components. So
Mm-hmm.
I was battling Uber when I had a $10 million ground transportation company. I'm in city council meetings every Tuesday night, and bill after bill after bill. And then I started seeing Airbnb bill, and all these changes. This is well before COVID. We're talking 7, 8 years before COVID. And it's, even though Nashville was the number one most investable market for like 5 years running from 13 to 18, because of the regulation, because of the political climate, I stayed out of investing here and went to drive-in vacation rental markets.
Mm.
But one of the big things with my strategy, and I think you've got Dr. Rachel coming on
Mm-hmm.
and later, possibly today, is her and I are the only two people that I know that have a similar strategy. And it's to own the least amount of properties, exuding the least amount of time to make the most amount of money.
Yep.
I currently own 12 properties.
Mm.
And we're almost at the end of the year. I know exactly what I'm going to do from a revenue standpoint and exactly what I'm going to do from a net income standpoint. Last year, I owned 13 properties and I
Mhm.
did $997,000
Mm.
in net income, folks, not gross revenue, net income.
Oh,
This year, I own 12 properties. I've mixed it up a little bit. I pumpkin plan. I sold the least performing property, tapped into the equity, reinvested, and now I'm going to do about 1.1, I think 1.1 million, like $7,000 is what I'm going to do off of those 12 properties. It took me a little bit more time because I had to travel. I had to go look at properties. My wife and I had to, turn them into super properties, that type of stuff. But it's because of that life plan of
mm.
what we want to do, of why we've been able to keep our portfolio small, but also have maximum return on investment.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And you brought up quite a few things that I want to sort of pick at. And the first one there is the idea of the life plan, right? Because when you stay on these internet streets, if you may, you touched on this a little bit. There's the how many doors do you have? Like literally, I had someone reach out to me this afternoon, and his kind of like opening question was, "How many units do you have?" And I thought, that's an interesting question to ask me without having met me, but that's the idea. But you're basically saying that there is a way to build wealth by having a life plan and then having your short-term rentals match that plan.
100%. I mean, the first thing I would ask you
Mm-hmm.
is, what's your goal? What do
Right.
you want to achieve through your investing? And most doctors that I talk to are, I either want to retire early or I want to get
Yep.
out of my practice or whatever it is, right? Okay, well, what's your income? Are you at 250, 150, 300, 500? I've got a war room doctor that's like one of those travel triage
Mm-hmm.
surgeons that's making like 800, working 14, 15 days a month, and he doesn't want to do that anymore. Okay, so that sets the barometer. Now there's the goal, right? That now we're going to reverse engineer the decisions of how much money you need to make
Mm-hmm.
and then like how fast do you want to retire?
Mm-hmm.
Because I believe that any of us can get to 250,000 through 5 properties with a net income of $50,000 each
Mm-hmm.
with one investment, one upfront. If you have like 100 grand, 150,000, you can make that first investment. If you pick the right market, the
Yeah.
right property, you know how to design it to become a super property. And that can be a 2 bedroom. It doesn't need to be a 6 or an 8 bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I coined the term super property in June of last year, and people are blowing it way out of proportion. It's not the biggest property. It's not the $300,000 interior design. It's about maxing out your return on investment.
Yeah.
I own 2 bedrooms all the way up to 8 bedrooms, right? My sweet spot is like 4 and 5 bedrooms in that 600 to $850,000 range. So
Mm-hmm.
we need to know where to invest
Mm-hmm.
to be able to max out our ARV, increase the value of the property,
Mm-hmm.
gives us an ability to reposition,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Increases cash flow, increases cash on cash. And if you do the right loan, I see a lot of people went into DSCRs, especially when they had the 40-year on the 30-year AMIT interest only, and nobody's paying down debt,
Mm.
right? So that's part. It's not just the cost sake. It's like you buy a $700,000 home, you put 20% down or 10%, whatever. But if you're doing principal and interest, now you're paying down debt,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And you're getting a cost sake benefit.
Yep.
And you're putting in some ARV the right way. You're not overspending. The number one problem that I see with people that have means is they overspend. And
Mm-hmm.
when people see my properties, and like I love some of the, I won't name the designers, they do
Mm-hmm.
better designs than what my wife does. Hey, that's all subjective. If your property looks great, that's awesome, but I'm making way more fucking money than you're making. And that's really why we're in this business, right?
Yeah.
So
Okay.
let's call a spade a spade. Let's be real in why you're only getting into this for one of two reasons. One, lifestyle asset,
Yep.
or two, to make money. And if you're in it to make money, you need to be extremely intentional about every single investment you're making, not just property wise.
Mm-hmm.
There's a difference between putting in a hot tub or a barrel sauna or a pool based on your ideal buyer and the market and even sub-market that you've invested into. And
Yeah.
if you don't nail all three of those things, then you're not going to make a strong amenity investment. People just default to pools, hot tubs, fire pits because that's what they see with the herd,
Yes.
on social media.
Yes.
So if anybody, and if any of you guys follow me, I go in a different spot. Everybody's investing into Asheville right now. I'm
Yes.
under contract in Banner Elk, North Carolina. Right. I went to Beach Mountain. The herd followed me. I sold and left Beach Mountain, and I redeployed that at the entrance to Glacier National Park in Clorum, Montana. Right. So you got to be different. You got to be unique. You got to go where everybody else is not. Look, I just recorded a STRonomics podcast with my mastermind member and friend Kenny Bedwell from STR Insights. He just put out the top markets to invest in this week in the entire country. And he'll kill me for saying this, but for your listeners, I'm going to tell you, you can get the report for free. Just go to STR Insights.
Yeah.
But nobody will guess unless you've seen it. What's the number one market to invest? Did you see it?
I saw it. And
Where is it?
Huh. Ohio.
It's in North Dakota.
Oh yeah, North Dakota, and I think number 2 was Ohio. I saw
North Dakota.
Like,
nobody in their right mind, unless they live in Bismarck or Minot, North Dakota, is thinking about going and investing into North Dakota.
Yeah.
Right. That's where you've got to uncover these gems, and that's where you invest. So I want to make sure all of your peeps out there understand this. I don't own in the Smokies. I don't own in PCB or in Destin or in 38. I don't own in Disney. I don't own in Joshua Tree. I don't own in Broken Bow because I know where to invest to make money. I don't follow the herd.
I mean, I feel like if I stop this right here, that alone right there, because when I tell people, I'm like, listen, these places have gotten priced out. Like they've gotten really hyped up. The prices are, sky high. The multiplier there, like you're making like $90,000 on $1 million property. Like the math is not mathing.
You're 100% correct. I want to give you an analogy. I want to go back to middle school or junior high, as we called it when I was going 6th, 7th, 8th grade. And if we're going to play basketball, did you play any sports growing up?
Clapping.
Okay, awesome. So, I'm 6'6".
Okay.
And I was always the tallest guy in my grade. Do you think anybody, if we're playing one-on-one basketball, anybody's going to pick me to play against? No. If there's a guy, I remember Kevin Thomas, he was about 6'4" in high school, and he's never going to want to play against me. And I didn't want to play against Kevin. You know who I'm picking to play against? I want to play against you. You're the clapper.
Right. I'm the clapper.
Crush you. You're not going to score. I'm going to annihilate you. Right. So think about that. If you're picking a market, why would you pick the Michael Jordan, or the Tiger Woods or the Serena Williams of the markets? Go find that little kid that you can crush in kickball, basketball, baseball, whatever, or it could be the spelling bee. And literally that's where you want to go invest. So really, instead of just looking at all the places that everybody's going on social media, what we should be looking at is the reviews. Yes. When you see find the shitty property management companies that dominate a market, and go and follow them, because the competition's like this. You go into Gatlinburg, you go into Disney, it's almost impossible. You have to invest about an extra 20, 30, 40% just to be able to be on the level playing field with them. That is not a sound investing strategy. That's
golden right there. Because I feel like when I'm particularly going to have my clients listen to this, because when I tell them, it almost sounds like I'm trying to keep them from those markets, but I'm like, listen, just look at the numbers. Okay. So you talk about, how do you identify your own markets? Is it numbers? Is it, from people that you talk to? Like, what's your process for finding a new market? People haven't heard about it on the social media streets. How do you find them?
Right there. I wake up at between 4 to 5 a.m. almost every day.
Okay.
I'm leaning like this over this side because my wife sleeps on that side, right? So the light's not going to wake her up. And I'm on STR Insights. And I'm not saying that because Kenny's in my mastermind or we have a podcast together. It's the only search tool that I can use to be able to sort by gross ROI across the entire country. So then when it shows me that, Clorum, Montana, when I closed in Clorum, Montana on a 2-bedroom luxury condo in September.
Yeah.
I started looking in that area in July when it was the number one place to invest in the West Coast. Remember, Kenny and I, not only do we have like a VA business, STR VA's business,
Mm-hmm.
but we started billing Kenny's hot picks, where we were picking the top properties 2 years ago
Yep.
by region, right? So I open up STR Insights and I do the query with one thing, gross ROI. That's it. Then I'll sort by small, medium, large market. Then I'll sort by something I'm interested in, and I'll break it down by national park or by lakes or beach. But it
Mm-hmm.
all starts with the gross ROI. I can't do that on AirDNA, Rabu, or
Yeah.
Mashvisor. You can't do it on Zillow. If you're going to Realtor.com, Redfin, Zillow, you have your personal bias in it. Now, I
Yes.
will tell everybody here, I don't invest in a market that I'm not interested in.
Mm-hmm.
Hot Springs, Arkansas is a prime example. I never invested into Hot Springs, Arkansas, but that was in my top three markets for the better part of a year to invest into from a financially driven decision. For me, I just have no interest in that market. I went there, I looked at it, I didn't like it, and I'm like, I can make a lot of money here, but I'm probably really not going to enjoy it. So I
Mm-hmm.
do look for markets that I enjoy, right? But one of the big things is I look at like I invested into Gulf Shores
Yeah.
instead of Destin.
Okay.
I went into Smith Lake, Alabama,
Mm-hmm.
instead of going to Lake Martin or going over by Austin and going to, to the lakes that
Yeah.
they have there. I went to Whitefish, Montana, as opposed to going to Big Sky or to Bozeman,
Mm.
right? So well, I went to Banner Elk as opposed to going into the Smokies. Every single market that I've ever invested into has been a tier two market, a secondary market, because that, my friends, is where you're going to make your money.
Yeah.
So I look at Gulf Shores as an example. My wife I put her on a plane this morning. We just are completing, and she's doing staging and the interior design of
Yeah.
a duplex, a 3-3 duplex that we've combined into a 7 bedroom and added 2 bunk rooms to where we'll sleep 22 people. Because I did the financial research to see that, okay, I know I got 3 combinations, A, B, and C
Yeah.
total unit,
Yeah.
but if there's a gap in the market at 20 plus, it's getting, I don't want to say saturated, but there's a lot of properties now 12 to 16.
Mm.
There's less at 18, but when you get to 20, and when I can get to 20 to 22 occupancy, that creates a whole nother opportunity.
Yeah.
That's why I went into Banner Elk 2.5 years ago and bought a 6 bedroom that was listed as a 4 that I could sleep 16 in comfortably. And understand, I am not a heads and beds guy, so I have to have enough space to be able to do this. I have to have enough dining space, which
Yeah.
is always a challenge. I have to have enough soft seating space. If I don't have that, I won't do it. So I'm not just cramming people in, to make money. Um, Same thing that's going on. I've got Kim Fitzpatrick from Launch Host
Yeah.
started yesterday for 2 properties, same thing that we're doing in the Outer Banks in Duck and Corolla, 2 6 bedrooms, beachfronts. We've done, I don't want to call it guts, but pretty close on both of them because that market's one of the few markets that will yield a major investment to take you from 200 grand to like 450 in annual revenue. So
Mm.
identifying those opportunities, it's deeper than STR Insights. It's deeper than AirDNA.
Yeah.
You've got to look at regulation. You've got to know people in that market that are real operators. That's one of the things I love about my mastermind and my inner circle. I've got over 150 sound investors and we share data. That's
Yeah.
one of the most important, like we benchmark. So I can turn to Jose, I can turn to Brian, I can turn to Scott and say, hey, show me your numbers. I actually have access to them because we share all that stuff, but I
Mm.
want to look at their real numbers for their 5 bedrooms, their 6 bedrooms, their 4 bedrooms, and then really identify. So like the OBX is an example. It's a prime example of where you can still buy and get into 300, 400, $500,000 a year
Yeah.
producing properties without having to spend 3, 4, 5 million.
Yeah.
But excuse me, there's these small micro geographic areas that they work. You can't just go to North Corolla where you have to drive on the beach and think that that's going to happen. It's all an epicenter around Duck. And
Mm.
that's right where you cross over from the mainland onto the island in Kitty Hawk. And you've got about a 5 to 6 mile strand. That's where I never said this publicly. So you guys are getting the breakdown here. That's where the investable market is. That's it. But you have to be willing to spend a minimum of about 1.6 million to 1.8 million and 200-300 grand, in upgrades,
Yeah.
because every one of the investable properties is dilapidated. You're going to need hardy board, new sliders, windows, because that's the way the property management companies treat them, right? And the owners are so absentee in most cases, and it's so old school that the properties just get run down. A lot of people look at that and they say, well, I'm not interested. That's where the opportunity is for somebody like me. Bad hosting, bad management, properties are run down, easy to separate, easy to become unique. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I like how you just spelled that out, that it's not just, what's on the market, but actually identifying the hidden gems in exactly what you just described.
100%. It's like Gulf Shores. People started looking at Gulf Shores a year ago when they finally heard about the airport going from a little regional airport to an international, and that like Frontier and Spirit and Delta were going to start flying in there. I've known that shit for 2.5 years. That's why I redeployed $4 million out of Fort Morgan and literally pulled it into West Beach in the heart, because I knew what was coming, right? Doing that deeper research is critical. Only reason I invested into Coram, Montana is because it's zoned scenic corridor, and there is no residential zoning between me and West Glacier to get into the national park. So I've got the most high-end condo available, high-end house available, and there's nothing that's going to go between us. It's going to take an act of God to get that rezoned. Right. When I closed on my first Montana house in February of last year, my river property that most people have seen, I literally was having dinner with my agent. She was buying me a congratulatory dinner. And she said, have you ever been down to Ennis, Montana? I said, no. She's all, literally, life is mimicking art. I'm like, what do you mean? She's all, do you watch the show Yellowstone? I said, I've seen it a couple times. She said, well, there's an airport that was just approved by city council, 1,500-foot landing strip, 18 miles from the Yellowstone Club, which is in Big Sky. So the Kardashians and the Timberlakes and all of the Bill Gateses and, the Larry Ellisons, they have to fly into Bozeman and then either helicopter or drive in. That's the only way they get to Big Sky right now. What do you think's happening? That's literally a dirt road is being turned into a 4-lane road to access from the private airport to get into Big Sky. So I bought 7 acres at $7,000 an acre. I closed the first week of March of this year. What do you think that's worth today? We're talking 9 months later, it's worth about $43,000 an acre. It's gone up 6x. So having the connections, doing those deeper research, that's where you're going to get the best deals.
Yeah. Yes. Interesting. Now, some people are listening now and probably wondering, okay, so how do you finance this? Like, what's your strategy for scaling? I know you bought a couple this past year. Do you have a number an ROI in mind when you're looking at properties, and how does that factor into your financing choices?
Yeah, so let's start with the financing choices first, because most people, especially high income W-2s, make the mistake of doing 10% down, second home investment loans. And even if you're making $500,000 a year, you have very small runway to be able to build 5, 6, 7 houses or buy 5, 6, 7 properties, right? So if you're buying at $700,000, just as an easy number to work with, and you're doing 10% down, you're financing, let's just call it 600 for easy math, right? $600,000 at 7% on a 30-year AM is still going to cost you like $4,000 a month. So if you do 5 of those, you're at 40% debt to income ratio. That's with no Tesla, no Rivian, no boat, no primary residence, no credit card debt. So managing your bankability is a critical component. I did the opposite when I first started. My first 8 properties were all purchased with commercial loans that do not report to the credit bureau, because I understand the financing component, right? So then I also know that they're in LLCs, right? So when you look at those loan applications and they say, list your mortgages, none of those go on to the mortgage. Those are businesses. Those are in entities, right? Don't give a shit if there's, an asset of real estate behind it. So I understand how to manage a personal financial statement. I know how to manage a bank, right? I know how to manage the decision maker at the bank to make myself more bankable. Not more bankable than I am, but to protect my bankability, protect my buying power. The
Yes.
very first property that I've ever purchased on a second home loan. Remember, I started in real estate when I was 19. I'm 50. I
Yes.
started in short-term rentals in 2015. Was this year I bought those two Montana properties, and my debt to income ratio was about 4%.
Mm,
So I knew that I could go buy $1 million property, 20% down. I've never done a 10% actually. 20% down because I want to have the stability. I want to be able to
yeah.
exit as the shit hits the
Yeah.
fan.
Yeah.
So 20% down, I'm financing roughly, I think I paid 980 for it. So
Mm-hmm.
whatever that is, let's call it
Yeah.
800,000 bucks. That's $5,000 a month, $5,500 a month payments not gonna, affect my DTI. Well, then I bought a $950,000 condo. I added basically $11,000 in PITI. I'm fine because as my income started to go up, and I knew at some point the rates would correct. Nobody could predict when it was going to happen.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
that's when I started moving in and starting to do second home loans. The Banner Elk, I'm doing a second home loan. So it'll be two this year. I won't close on Banner Elk till next year.
Yeah.
I pushed that because I didn't, and this is really important. I was going to close on that before Christmas. I backed out of it. Honestly, I lost my earnest money in North Carolina, and then I put it back under contract. And so I could move because they wouldn't move it. So then I moved the date into January because I don't need the cost seg this year.
This
And
year.
a
Okay.
lot of people would say, well, you're going to lose 20%. I get all that, but it's a strategy. You got to have that intimate relationship with your taxes and with your finances to know what to do and when you're going to need those benefits.
I'm really glad that you mentioned the taxes part. We actually have, I think Amanda Han is one person that I already have scheduled. But if you're listening, just keep an eye out. As time goes on, we'll see you hear the talk on taxes and be able to understand the whole cost seg thing that he's talking about.
It's a huge deal, but next year is going to probably be our last year at 60%. Once we get below 60%, it's not going to make any sense. The one thing I will tell everybody, I made more money than I've ever made in my life last year. And I paid less than $200,000 in taxes. And I'm talking, I made multiple seven figures because of cost seg, because of Section 179, because of the Augusta rule, because of all these different types of things that we can take advantage of. You need to really understand the short-term rental loophole. But if you know who Ryan Bakey is, learn
Yeah.
like a CPA. He's on my super team. One of the biggest issues that Jeff Hampton, Ryan Bakey, and myself face with people, especially high-income W-2s, and we say this all the time, you can't let the
tax tail wag the dog.
100%. And too many people are getting bad investments in their portfolio because of high cost segregation benefit. So I just spent $7 million for a client in 9 weeks, all for cost segs, but I still found him income producing properties. You asked, the second part of that question was like, hey, what's your cash on cash? What's your return on investment that you're looking for? If it's going to produce less than $200,000 in revenue, I won't settle for less than 20% cash on cash. If it's going to do over $200,000 in revenue, then I'm willing to go down to 13 to 15%, depending on what the cash flow is. So there's really somewhere around 175, 185 to 200. That's when I shift my mindset from thinking about cash on cash return to cash flow. And I'm always looking at both, but it becomes more important the bigger that cash flow becomes.
Yeah.
And I think people and I'm probably part of the culprit for this. My very first conference, I was handing out, wristbands that says 30% cash on cash, don't settle for less. But then we had to go back. But the problem is people are investing at 10% today, 8%. That's not going to yield, and they're doing 10% downs, 15% downs. It's not going to put you in a position to be able to reposition. You're not going to be able to pay down, into your equity fast enough for your debt reduction. And you're not going to, if you're buying like sub-$1 million properties, you're not going to generate enough cash flow. So that's why I talk about we always need to be thinking 3 deals ahead. Even if we're only prepared to buy one, we need to think about our financing. We need to think about our personal cash position, and we need to forecast that out in our pro formas before we purchase.
That's great. Yeah. Now, in thinking ahead, because I know listening to you, you are one person that I remember when the interest rates first went up, you were talking quite a bit about risk management. What are some things that you warn people about regarding these 3 things that you mentioned, the cash flow management, if things shift, what would you counsel newbies or even people who are experienced who just may have ridden the wave when everything was, great and gravy? And now we're kind of in that place where we're like, okay, now you have to like actually think through what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I think number one is just understand who I am. I'm very conservative. I may go fast, I may talk fast, I may, buy big properties, whatever, but I started with a $600,000 property and $126,000 down payment in a short-term rental. And I've never put another penny into that portfolio. I've
Mm,
grown all of it out of cash flow. I made my second investment, I lost 120 grand. It set me back almost 2 years, right?
mm,
Because I made a promise to my wife when I was going to start scaling that I wasn't going to put all my eggs financially into this basket because we didn't know if this Airbnb thing was going to work, right?
yeah.
So just want everybody to know I'm super conservative. One of the biggest faults that I see people making is if they're going to buy a $500,000 property, that's going to cost me 100 grand, 20% down, another 3,000, 3% for closing costs, maybe 50K, to new furniture, whatever. So I'm in for 153,000. Okay, and they put that on their pro forma. Well, I have a line on my pro forma that says carry costs.
Mm-hmm.
So if that property is going to cost me $3,000 a month, PITI, and insurance, water, utilities, whatever. So let's say it's 3,500 bucks. What is 3,500 times six? That's roughly about 21,000 bucks.
Yeah,
I'm not real smart. Remember, I'm a college dropout. So, roughly
that's
around
spot
20,
on. Yeah.
$21,000. So you better add that 21K to that 153. So now it's 174 is what your investment should be. The
Mm,
problem is we as human beings and as business owners, investors, regardless of being experienced or inexperienced, we rob ourselves first, right? So what happens when you go through another COVID, or what happens when you go through the summer that you had last year and you made a bad investment in Wares Valley, in the Smokies, and you have that average 3 bedroom and it's not a super property and it doesn't stand out, and you saw your rents plummet because you bought it in June of 2021, and then 2022 they went down, 2023 they went down even more. So you've probably taken a 30% hit since the peak, maybe even 40%.
mm,
Now you're not cash flowing and you didn't plan for it ahead of time. That's the number one mistake that I see people at least 6 months. People that weren't in the game before COVID probably aren't aware of a company named Stay Alfred. They had like 3,000 units of arbitrage and managed and hosting when COVID hit in March of 2020. They were out of business within 30 days,
wow.
gone, bankrupt. They were in Austin, Nashville, Miami. They had all the premier buildings that they were arbitraging, and they're gone in less than 30 days. Why? Because they didn't have enough carry costs. They didn't have enough runway when the shit hit the fan.
Mm,
And that is the fundamental premise of funding a business, is that you better have enough capital to cover carry costs. So I keep a year because I can afford to do a year.
yes.
I think most of us should not make the investment. One, you should never use more than about 30% of your total life savings. I see too many people coming in that have $400,000 and they're putting 200,000 in, or they have $200,000 and they're using 100 or 150. And that's everything that they have. That's their cash in their checking account. It's their 401k, it's their Roth, whatever it is. And they're depleting it. They're borrowing against it. That is way too risky for me. I advise those people, do not invest. Go co-host, go make more money, go start a side hustle, go do something else. Let's be way more conservative, because there is a huge learning curve when you get into this.
Yes.
People that think that they can do what I do, outperform Air DNA by 52%, the 90th percentile, you're completely misguiding yourself. Let's be honest with you. It took me about 3 to 4 years to figure this out. And I was already an expert marketer, but I didn't understand pricing optimization. I mean, shit, I manually priced for my first probably year and a half. There weren't people like me telling people, oh, go get Price Labs and do this stuff. We didn't know about that stuff in 15, 16, 17. So it's a different game today, but there is an extensive learning curve for you to be able to ascend from the 50th percentile to 75 to 90 to get above that. I look at my average mastermind member outperforms the 90th percentile by 30%. They're catching up to me. I do 52% because they're learning. And the one thing that I would tell everybody, surround yourself with people that are better than you. You guys know that in your professional life.
Yep.
Apply the same thing in your investment life.
If you missed any of that, you need to just hit rewind, pause, go listen to that again. Go write a little note to yourself. Listen, I always interview people with a little note card here because I'm like, I'm not gonna interview people and give out all the gems and then not take them not take them down for myself. Okay, so Bill, what's your outlook on SDRs right now?
That's funny. I just recorded for STR and filter my predictions for
Oh
2024.
yeah. Oh okay.
And my outlook for STRs, I mean, I'm still investing into STRs. You know, the boutique hotel was so 2022 and 2023. That's the de jour. I don't want a bunch of rooms, right? I don't want a bunch of doors, as we talked about as a beginning. I am an investor in some hotels, but it's passive because I don't want to manage that stuff. I think you have to determine what you want. If you invest into tertiary markets, secondary markets, if you really know how to underwrite and find the right properties and you do the right things, then you're either, here's the deal. Right here in between you and I'm either going to get pushed down
Mm-hmm.
or I'm going to ascend up where you are.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I'm already at the top. So I've got to fight to stay there. But if you're in the middle with that average 2, 3, 4, 5 bedroom that you bought that's not performing very well right now, you better do one of two things. You either better invest some capital into the right stuff into that property and really do some research to make sure that you can get that to a point to where you want to get it to and upgrade, or you better sell and reinvest because the middle is going to get pushed down. And the people that do the reinvestment either into new properties or into their existing property are going to go up. Sears, Gap, Kmart, Ruby Tuesdays, Applebee's, Red Robin, they're all going away. Right? You're either going to be Restoration Hardware, Nordstrom, Gucci at the top, or you're going down in your TJ Maxx. You're going to be at the very, very bottom. The middle is not going to survive in our economy. We've already seen that. The middle is what's gotten crushed in 2023. I see everybody bitching and complaining. Airbnb. I was one of the few people to say there's no such thing as an Airbnb bust. You just either own shitty properties or you suck as a host. Honestly, you don't know how to market. You don't know how to revenue management. You don't know how to design. So you got to make a decision. You're either going to be an occupancy driven low price investor or you're going to learn to do the stuff that I do so you can maximize your return on investment. Those are the only two options you have. You cannot stay in the middle. Both are fine. There's a place in this world for both sides, but middle America is going away and the same thing is applicable in 2024 for short-term rentals.
I will actually say this, that being on the different Facebook groups for STR hosts, there's one group in particular that you go to and everyone is just complaining. And then on your group, I remember particularly at one point, people just like posting their occupancy like sheets. And I was like, interesting. The vibe here is basically, we're okay. we're doing okay. And then the vibe on this other side is, oh my gosh, what's happening to, so,
my occupancy for my entire portfolio this year from 2023 versus 2022 has dropped from 66% to 63%, a 3% drop. That's like a deck chair on the Titanic.
Right. Amazing. Okay, now you have a conference coming up. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah, it's the SDR Wealth Conference. It's February 5th through the 8th in Nashville, Tennessee. It's the event of the year.
I mean, or registration.
Excuse me.
Is it sold out or
no? We still have tickets. So we've tripled we've gone from 1,000 people to 3,000 people. We've got tickets. I don't know when this is going to air, but ticket pricing, it does go up on January 2nd. Okay. And then it's probably going to go up every 2 weeks as we get closer. We have plenty of tickets available. I mean, the speaking lineup, the education is, you've never seen anything in our industry like this. And it's inside our industry and outside of our industry. So it's not just the regular people that you've seen in the short-term rental space. I mean, Pace Morby, he's hard to keep up with. You want to talk about creative financing. Yep. Angie Wisdom is doing a women's only, breakout session. We have 18 breakout sessions. We've never done that before. It's just been one stage. So we have the pre-conference workshops. if you guys are not signed up for a pre-conference workshop, you need to go to SDRwealthconference.com and do that. Specifically the revenue management. There's still like 15 or 20 seats left in the revenue management one. It's crazy. So we have 4 pre-conference workshops, opening kick-ass party, as you guys know, all day on Monday. And then inside Monday, we're taking a 2-hour lunch break and we're going to have 8 workshops. Then we have 4 more workshops that night on the back end from like 5 to 6. Come back, we do 8 more workshops on Tuesday. We got Damon John, we got Sean Mike, we got Hank Norman, we got Pace Morby, we got Angie Wisdom. And we have the regulars too. Julie George is going to be here, Sean Raskovich, Noble Crawford, TJ Tadani, Dr. Rachel, Stacy St. John. They're all going to be here. For the first time ever, there's 2 new things that are going to be crazy. One, we're on Monday between the workshops, the pre-conference workshops and the opening party, we have networking very strategically set up for in the vendor area with food and all that type of stuff by region, by where you own your properties. It's going to be pretty cool. Then I'm so excited for the very first day of the conference on Tuesday. Angie Wisdom, and go to angiewisdom.com and check her out. She is this high-powered super coach, and I've got her, not only is she doing a keynote on how to break the glass ceiling, but ladies, she's doing a women's only workshop that's going to be first come, first serve. Those breakout sessions on Tuesday and Wednesday are free. There's no extra charge for those. So make sure that you get into that. I'm super jacked and super excited. The other thing about Damon John, most people don't know that Damon John's a pretty astute real estate investor. I've had the opportunity to speak with him multiple times as we're getting prepared for this. And one of the things that I've done with Damon, Mike McAllowicks was incredible last year. And I just had him at my mastermind meeting actually teaching the pumpkin plan. He was 3 hours nonstop gyrations and just incredible content. But the one thing with Damon, he's an incredible keynote, but I've decided to have him sit down and we're doing a fireside chat, me and Mike and him. And we're going to make sure that's interactive for people that are in the crowd to be able to get to ask Damon questions, which is pretty cool. And as always, we're bringing the heat. It's going to be exciting. I've modeled the stage exactly after Taylor Swift's stage. It's going to come out into a crowd. We've got these LED boards. It'll be immersive. Chris is producing everything. It's going to be incredible.
Amazing. Now, I mean, guys, if you have not attended an SDR Wealth Conference, you need to add that to your plans for the year, because it's definitely an experience. Wow. Thank you, Bill. Now, if you wanted to leave, like, should I say, last words or last tips to listeners, what would that be as they're kind of entering this new year, thinking about short-term rentals, wealth building, the full picture?
I think number one is to have some really clear goals. And what I'm talking about is not annual goals, right? Mm-hmm. What are you doing? Set your annual goals tied into your life plan, to your long-term goals, but then break them down by quarter, then break them down by month, then break them down by week, then break them down by day, and then break it down to what are you doing today? There's a reason that I built this thing. This is not for sale. This is the last one in existence. I don't want anybody to think that I'm pitching them, but I keep track of everything every single day, and then I grade myself down here at the end of the day. You can never have more than 3 priorities. So every time I do a workshop, I do a boot camp, I do whatever, you have a 1 day, you have a 7 day, a 21 day, a 30 day, and a 90-day goal setting that you have to do. And the biggest thing is like, if you just spent, 45 minutes, an hour listening to this, what are you taking away? What are you going to do right now in the next 15 minutes? Because if you don't do something immediately following this, when you learn something, you lose 70% likelihood that you're going to do anything at all. So do something now. Take action immediately. That's why I love action takers. And if you ever buy anything from me, be the first to do it, because that's where you're going to get all the value and all the added bonuses, because that's what high achievers do. We take action immediately. Yes.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much, Bill, for taking the time to hang out with us here at SDR Fest. I am super excited that we got to chat. Where can people find you?
BuildSDRWealth.com. Go to my Build Short-Term Rental Wealth Facebook group. We got over 31,000 people in there. Or Bill Faeth, Faeth 73 on Instagram.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
You too. I hope you got a ton of value from this interview. Now, if you got any value from it, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you want to get your copy of the STR blueprint to get your first or next short-term rental, go to thestRbook.com.